Okay, so this is gonna be a wild ride. This is the type of video that we never, ever make. And it's one of these things that I don't think we're ever gonna make again. You know, like this is such an interesting, weird topic that I really feel like I need to preface this entire video by saying that you will not see anything as weird as this for a long time. Let's talk today about the Edmonton OILERS and how, apparently, we might have just gotten ourselves word as to 4 trades that the team might have had in store, but ultimately did not fulfill. Haha, that's a pun. In store. That's very funny. And you don't know why it's funny, but I'll tell you why it's funny in a little bit here. The reason we're making this video is because we had ourselves a Twitter user by the name of Oil in Goal. What they did was, a few days ago, they went over to the Edmonton OILERS locker room sale event that was going on. The Oilers do this, I'm pretty sure you know what this is. They go out there and they sell some of the crap that they've got in their locker room that's just lying around. Sometimes, if you are lucky enough, you'll get some pretty good gems when it comes to jerseys or maybe even sticks sometimes. It's kind of dependent on the team that does this sort of thing. But this user went over to the event and they found 4 Edmonton OILERS jerseys of names that aren't actually Edmonton OILERS players. These are the jerseys that they found. They had a number 28, Soucy. They had a number 67, Middleton. They had themselves a number 61, Braun. And they had themselves an 81, Stahl. Now, if you're thinking about it a little bit, you're going to be saying, wait a minute, what the hell? At the trade deadline, the Edmonton OILERS made a trade for one defenseman, Brett Kulak. He's a left-handed guy, and he actually helped out the Oilers pretty well. A lot of Oilers fans were happy to see the impact that he was able to make. However, if you put your thinking caps on and you try to analyze, wait a minute, what in the world are these names on these jerseys, you can kind of connect the dots a little bit as to who else the Oilers had in mind for trades and who apparently they were close to actually trading for. The Soucy, number 28, is Carson Soucy from the Seattle Kraken. He's a left-handed defenseman that was in trade rumors towards the end of the 21-22 season. However, he did not end up getting traded. He is still with Seattle, and he's a guy that is also a left-handed D. The Middleton is most likely Jacob Middleton, who was traded from the San Jose Sharks to the Minnesota Wild at the end of the 22 season. He is also a left-handed D. Braun is likely Justin Braun, as he wears number 61 as a member of the Philadelphia Flyers. He was inevitably traded from Philly to New York at the trade deadline. He actually returned to Philadelphia to start off 22-23 as a free agent, so that's kind of funny to see him return. And then for the Stahl, I guess you could say, wait a minute, there are 2 Stahls, 3 if you want to count, Jordan, but there's no real reason the Carolina Hurricanes would have traded Jordan, but guess what? We've been talking about defensemen the entire time. Brett Kulak was a defenseman that was acquired by the team. Mark Stahl is the guy that was most likely the one represented by this 81 jersey, considering the fact that Mark Stahl normally wears number 18, and he is also a defenseman. They just flipped the number on this jersey. And so even if you have your doubts, this is probably one of the most interesting ways that we have had trades leaked into the media before. I guess from an outsider's point of view. Obviously, I'm not an NHL insider. You're not an NHL insider unless Bob McKenzie's watching this video. Hello, Bob. What's going on, man? But this is so strange just to see, firstly, the fact that apparently the team jersey guy, the guy who makes all the jerseys, he gets insider information as to who the team is close to acquiring, and thus he's able to make their jerseys on the spot right away. How, secondly, this sort of thing was kept around in the locker room for long enough that they were able to put it out into the public and say, hey, you want to buy the crap that we have in here? We got Carson Soucy, Jacob Middleton, Mark Stahl, and Justin Braun jerseys. Thirdly, I'm thinking about the players involved here. Wait a minute, are these guys getting any royalties for this? Like, I get it's not official or anything, but at the same time, I feel like that's not an irrational question to go out there and ask, right? I guess you could say that the answer is, oh, they were never officially traded, and plus this is not an official, team sale of McDavid jerseys, it's just a team sale of what they happen to have. They could be selling things that were never actually worn, or that, these jerseys weren't worn, right, because Mark Stahl was never an Oiler, but they could be selling other stuff that just was really practice material, or extra gloves that never saw the light of day. So it's not really an official thing where it's like, okay, royalties, that makes sense. But at the same time, just acknowledging that this was close to happening gets me really interested. Mostly because when it comes to Brett Kulak, the guy that the Oilers actually did end up trading for from the Montreal Canadiens in the entire ordeal, they gave up a pretty penny to acquire Kulak from Montreal. The trade return was William Legason, a conditional second-round pick, and a seventh-round pick in 2024. So that's a pretty beefy deal. I mean, if you go over to the other guys that were traded over, and by that I mean Middleton and Braun, because Soucy and Stahl were not actually traded at the trade deadline, Jacob Middleton was traded for goaltender prospect Kaapo Kähkönen and a fifth-round pick. I guess if the San Jose Sharks really did want a goalie prospect in return, the Oilers might not have been willing to depart with a guy like Stuart Skinner, for example, because hey, if we're getting a guy like Jake Middleton, whom we're going to need to extend, and he did actually extend with the Wild, he signed a 3-year extension worth $2.45 AAV. If we're going to be getting a guy like this, we kind of don't want to go out there and trade away a goalie prospect that we have value in, so probably say no to that deal. That makes sense. And then you have yourselves the Justin Braun trade, which sent him from the Philadelphia Flyers over to the New York Rangers, too. You take a look at the trade details of this transaction, and it only cost the Rangers a third-round pick to get Braun. Now, to be fair, Braun wasn't really the best player anyway, and a lot of Rangers fans I saw were complaining about him in the playoff run. Plus, he's right-handed and not left. So just from isolating the two other scenarios of trades that actually happened, it makes sense to me why the Oilers went with the Kulak route instead, because Kulak, I mean, he's a pretty good player, and the price that they ended up giving up, even though you could say that a goalie prospect and a fifth for Middleton would have been cheaper, hey, they wanted to keep their goalie prospects, I guess. It is interesting to me, though, that Stahl and Soucy are also here as well because they weren't actually traded. So for Soucy, you gotta wonder, what exactly were the Seattle Kraken asking for this guy in trade return requests? And for the Red Wings, you had Mark Stahl, who eventually finished off the season in Detroit, not getting sent away either. He's on the Florida Panthers now with his brother Eric, so that's gonna be pretty cool to see, just that connection. But at the end of the day, it still kind of blows my mind, to be honest, thinking that the trade is getting leaked to the media because some person on the team who's making the jerseys was informed to make those jerseys. Like, don't you think it would be a little bit more appropriate to maybe make the jersey after you acquire the guy in a trade? Not to have all these names lying around of players that you're thinking about getting but not actually getting. I know it's kind of like that for the NHL Draft, where they have a whole bunch of prospect names printed out on different jerseys just in case that player gets taken by some other team, but like, at the end of the day, there's still a waiting period process in that entire situation, right? Like when you make a draft pick, you could see, oh, the pick is in, there's like 2 or 3 minutes left before the pick has to be finalized, and then they can go up to the stage and announce it, and by that time, there's somebody that made the jersey tag and the nameplate already, which is why the jersey is there. And then for guys that are drafted later, you don't even see them have a nameplate. So for a situation like this, where the Oilers had jerseys of Justin Braun, Carson Soucy, Jacob Middleton, and Mark Stahl lying around in their locker room, it's kind of funny. And even with that, I kind of think of it like, what is Connor McDavid thinking about that? What's Brett Kulak, the guy that actually was traded to Edmonton, thinking about that too? Hey, these are jerseys lying around in their locker room of other guys that the team was wanting to trade for instead of me. That's pretty interesting. And I definitely don't think we're ever going to see something like this happen again, especially with the Oilers, because it's like, oh, it's now leaking on social media, and now the Oilers are aware that, hey, we had these jerseys of random guys from other NHL teams with our logo available at the team sale, and now it's like, okay, we got to make sure that doesn't happen again. So talk to me, your thoughts about the Oilers potentially making trades with the Sharks, the Flyers, the Red Wings, and the Kraken for guys that either didn't get traded at all or got traded to completely other teams. What are your thoughts on these situations and these players and how the Oilers were involved in general? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.